welcome to our reflection for the Thursday of Holy Week, Maundy Thursday in COVID land 2020. Tonight at 7 p.m. we will be streaming a online Tenebrae service. Tomorrow morning at 9:30 we'll be offering a Good Friday reflection. Please bring a nail, a piece of wood, a hammer, or a dried leaf and something to write on it, or all of those. And on Sunday morning at 9:30 we'll be offering an Easter celebration, and to that I'd invite you to bring a candle. The Gospel reading for today, Thursday of Holy Week, comes from John chapter 13, verses 1 to 17, and then verses 31 to 35. They are the verses that wrap around the verses that we read yesterday, and today I'm reading from the Common English Bible. Before the festival of Passover, Jesus knew that his time had come to leave this world and to go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them fully. Jesus and his disciples were sharing the evening meal. The devil had already provoked Judas, Simon Iscariot's son, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew the Father had given everything into his hands, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the table and took off his robes. Picking up a linen towel, he tied it around his waist. Then he poured water into a wash basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel he was wearing. When Jesus came to Simon Peter, Peter said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You don't understand what I'm doing now, but you will understand later." "No," said Peter, "you will never wash my feet." Jesus replied, "Unless I wash you, you won't have a place with me." Simon Peter said, "Lord, not only my feet, but also my hands and my head." Jesus responded, "Those who are bathed need only have their feet washed, because they are completely clean. You disciples are clean, but not every one of you." He knew who would betray him. That's why he said, "Not every one of you is clean." After he washed his disciples' feet, he put on his robes and returned to his place at the table. He said to them, "Do you know what I've done for you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you speak correctly because I am. If I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you too must wash each other's feet. I have given you an example. Just as I have done, you also must do. I assure you, servants aren't greater than their master, nor are those who are sent greater than the one who sent them. Since you know these things, you will be happy if you do them." And then verse 31. When Judas was gone, Jesus said, "Now the human one has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him. If God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify the human one in himself, and will glorify him immediately. Little children, I am with you for a little while longer. You will look for me, but just as I told the Jewish leaders, I also tell you now, where I'm going, you cannot come. I give you a new commandment: love each other. Just as I have loved you, so you also must love each other. This is how everyone will know that you are my disciples, when you love each other." This day, the Thursday on Holy Week, is often called Maundy Thursday. The term Maundy comes from the Latin mandate or mandatum novum, which means command or new order or new commandment. Love each other. Just as I have loved you, so you must also love each other. This is how everyone will know that you are my disciples, when you love each other. This day for us at St. George's has been about, in the past, gathering for a simple meal, foot washing, and then Tenebrae, the service of shadows. While we're still doing the online version of Tenebrae, the service of shadows, tonight at 7 p.m. on our Facebook page, we are still doing that, but so that leaves us the meal and the foot washing. And for these it might be helpful to start with the end, the new commandment, which is, well, it's not really that new. I mean, if we were honest and had read all of John's Gospel, that's pretty much what Jesus has been doing, busy living throughout the whole of the Gospel, and in fact, through all the Gospels. Much of what he is doing here is reminding them of all that he has done to this point and taking it further. So when he gathered with his disciples for this last meal, he was reminding them of all those meals he had taken part in with all the wrong people. All those times he had offered or accepted hospitality to those who were sick, who were sinners, who were tax collectors. And each time he did this, he had honoured and blessed them, those who were deemed outside of God's care and concern. It was a subversive act, and it got him into a lot of trouble. Luke tells us that that's the reason why the Sanhedrin was determined to get rid of him. When we are eventually allowed to gather around the table, we will join the disciples in remembering and reenacting this subversive act, honouring and blessing all the wrong people. So what does that look like? I received this email from a friend this week who was using the time of lockdown to sort out some of his grandparents' papers. He says that between 1909 and 1929, his dad's parents taught in what were then called native schools in various remote parts of the North Island. He goes on to describe how, against the backdrop of the civilizing mission of the Department of Education, they saw their strong Christian mission in terms of social justice. He writes that his grandfather was an astute and prolific writer who was forever getting himself into trouble. For example, he was a staunch supporter of the Treaty of Waitangi and clashed with other native school teachers, especially during World War I, who believed it was not very important at all, especially during World War I, when it was much more important to kill Germans. He was often ticked off by the department for trying to extract from it more resources for his community. Why on earth would he want to do that? And he argued with the inspectors over his, in their eyes, slack discipline. You must always make your requirements orders, not requests. Do not say, please be seated, but just say, sit. And he was often caught up in Marai politics, supporting individuals that he thought were subject to injustice. In the eyes of the department and in the eyes of his fellow teachers, Māori were less than, less important, less capable. That's why you didn't ask. That's why you ordered. As I read this, I thought, this is what it means to live what Jesus was doing in these meals. Standing with those the powerful and the influential see as less than. And I was reminded of Jesus washing his disciples' feet. He is the master, the rabbi. The disciples should wash his feet. Instead, he takes off his robe, the robe that represents his authority as a rabbi, and he demeans himself. We cannot underestimate how demeaning it was for him to do what he did. He became the slave or the servant. He became one of the less thans. And he promotes his disciples to the place of honoured guest. He treats them with care and respect, just as my friend's grandparents treated the people in their communities and the children in front of them with care and respect. Jesus says that this is what it means to lead, that this is what it means to love. and the disciples struggled to receive it, to understand it. The old ways were far too ingrained. And I have to wonder, after 2,000 years, if we're any better. My friend's story would suggest not. So here we are in lockdown. Normally I would ask you to wash the feet of others, and I would ask such excellent questions like, did you allow your feet to be washed? What was that like for you? And if you chose not to have your feet washed, what stopped you? And did you wash another's feet? What was that like for you? And if you chose not to, what stopped you? And by all means, please wash the feet of the people in your bubble. And ask yourself those questions, and ask yourself what the invitation might be in this time. But maybe this year, the invitation is simply to reflect on what it means to love one another in lockdown. Love one another in your bubble. Love one another outside of your bubble. What is the gift of this time in learning to love? And where might you struggle to receive this gift? And so we finish with two prayers. Infinite, intimate God, this night you kneel before your friends and wash our feet. Bound together in your love, trembling, we drink your cup and watch. O God, take our minds and think through them. Take our lips and speak through them. Take our hearts and set them on fire with love for you and your world. May your kingdom come. Hear these prayers for your love's sake. Amen. Be kind to yourself and others. Stay safe. Stay calm. Wash your hands.